My name is Claire and I turned 30 on a Tuesday. I woke up that morning expecting nothing extraordinary, just the usual workday, maybe a birthday text or two, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the promotion I had worked toward for 3 years had finally come through the week before, senior financial analyst. My boss had announced it in front of the entire department. I had called my mother that same evening, voice still shaking with excitement, and she had said, "That's wonderful, honey. Oh, by the way, your sister's graduation ceremony is this weekend? I'll call you after." She never called after. I found out about the party through Instagram stories. My aunt had posted a video at 11:40 on Saturday night, 17 seconds of my entire family crowded into my parents' backyard, sparklers in hand, screaming, "Congratulations, Megan," at the camera. My mother was in the front, wearing the blue dress she saves for occasions she considers important. My father stood beside her, laughing at something my sister had just said, his arm around her shoulders like she was the most precious thing he had ever been given. The caption read, "She did it. Our girl finally showed the world what she's made of. So proud. This one's a fighter." My sister had spent 4 years completing a 2-year associate's degree in general studies. I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter and stood there for a moment, staring at the backsplash tile I had helped my mother pick out during a kitchen renovation I had partially funded 3 summers ago. Then I picked the phone back up and watched the video again. I still remember the casual shrug. As he handed me $200 and Womban at Mahlers and Womban and his Tubele Porsche. The string lights that had been stored in the garage since my parents' 25th anniversary party, the one I had organized, decorated for, and driven 4 hours round trip to attend, the same weekend I had a licensing exam. My cousin's husband behind the grill. My grandmother in her good cardigan, the one she only wears when she wants to look put together for photos. My uncle who lives in Phoenix and claims the drive is too hard on his back. Everyone was there. I scrolled through the other posts. My cousin had uploaded a full album, 31 photos. There was a banner. There were balloons in Megan's favorite shade of yellow. There was a stack of gifts on the patio table, including what appeared to be a designer tote bag still in the dust cover, the kind I had mentioned wanting for my work bag exactly once in passing. On a phone call with my mother in February, there was a photo of Megan holding a small envelope, beaming, while my father pointed at it proudly. I went back to my mother's story. She had posted a separate one from earlier that evening, just before the party started. A photo of the backyard setup, candles lit, taken from the doorway. Her caption, "Some people actually earn their celebrations." Some people, I read it 3 times. Then I did something I had not done in probably 2 years. I put on my coat at midnight, walked to the gas station 2 blocks away, bought a bottle of sparkling water I didn't want, and stood in the parking lot for 15 minutes just to feel cold air on my face. Because if I stayed in my apartment, I was going to say something I couldn't take back, and I had spent 30 years learning how to swallow things I couldn't take back. Let me explain something about growing up in my family. My sister Megan is 4 years younger than me, and from the time she could talk, she understood something I never did. That volume was a form of currency. She cried louder when she was hurt, so she got more comfort. She celebrated louder when she succeeded, so her successes got more attention. She complained louder when things were hard, so her difficulties got more accommodation. I was quiet. I handled things. I got straight A's without making anyone go to bat for me at school. I won a scholarship to a state school and left at 18 with a suitcase and a prepaid debit card with $300 on it because my parents needed the rest to help Megan through a rough patch she was having that fall. I worked 2 jobs through college. I graduated in 3.5 years. I moved to a city where I knew exactly one person, built a career from the bottom up, and sent money home more often than anyone knew. That last part is the part that matters. It started small. Megan called me 4 years ago, 24 years old and in her first semester of community college, saying her car insurance had lapsed because she'd forgotten to pay it and she couldn't get to school without her car. Could I cover it just this once? $212. I transferred it the same day. Then it was her phone bill. Then a credit card she had let slip into collections. Then another month of car insurance because she'd miscalculated. Then a security deposit on an apartment when her roommate situation fell apart. Then the first month's rent on that apartment. Then the utilities because the account was in her name and she didn't set up autopay and the power got shut off in February. I kept a spreadsheet. I've kept it since the second year, when I realized this wasn't a series of isolated emergencies. It was a pattern. Every transfer logged, every amount, every date, every stated reason. 41 separate transactions over 26 months. The total, as of the night I stood in that gas station parking lot, was $14,320. Megan had thanked me for perhaps a third of those transfers. For the rest, she had simply moved on. No mention of the money at family gatherings. No mention when she posted her new apartment decor on Instagram. No mention when she started her college classes that she was, in large part, able to attend because I was keeping her financial life from completely collapsing every other month. My family did not know. Megan had specifically asked me not to tell them. They'll just make it a whole thing, she had said, and I'm already stressed. I respected that. I was stupid enough to respect that for 26 months. What my family did know. That Megan had enrolled in school, that she was working on herself, that she was finally finding her direction. They celebrated every credit she completed. They made a Facebook post when she passed her first semester. My mother sent me a text the week before the graduation party saying that Megan's persistence was an inspiration. I remember reading that text in the break room at work and eating the rest of my lunch in silence. I came back inside from the parking lot, poured the sparkling water down the sink, and opened my laptop. I wasn't angry yet. That surprised me. What I felt was something more precise. Clarity. The kind that settles in when you've been lying to yourself about something for a very long time and the lie finally gets too loud to ignore. I had told myself I was helping my sister because I loved her. And I did love her. But I had also been buying my place in the family, quietly, over and over, hoping that one day it would be enough for them to see me. To actually see me. My promotion the week before was the biggest professional achievement of my life, and my mother had ended that call in under 4 minutes to go watch television. But she had managed to coordinate a catered backyard party for a 2-year degree that took 4 years. I opened the spreadsheet first. I looked at the number for a long time, $14,320. I thought about what I could have done with that money. The high-yield savings account I kept telling myself I'd fund. The trip to Portugal I'd been planning for 3 years and always deprioritized because something always came up. The new laptop I was still waiting to afford comfortably. Then I opened my bank account and found the autopay I had set up 11 months ago for Megan's car insurance, a recurring monthly charge of $189 that processed on the 15th of every month. I had set it up after she called me crying because she'd gotten pulled over and the officer had discovered her coverage had lapsed again. I canceled it. Then I found the calendar reminder I'd set for myself, transfer for M's rent. I deleted it. I thought about stopping there, just quietly stepping back saying nothing and seeing how long it took anyone to notice. But I thought about my mother's Instagram caption. Some people actually earn their celebrations. And I opened my email. I wrote one email to my parents, with Megan copied. I kept it factual. No accusations, no emotional appeals, no history of everything they had missed. Just the numbers, the dates, the amounts, the transfers I had been making for over 2 years, quietly, without recognition, while Megan accepted their praise for her persistence, and I sat in my apartment watching it on my phone. I attached the spreadsheet. I told them that as of today, all financial support to Megan was ending. I was not interested in a conversation about it. I was not asking for anything in return. I was done. I hit send at 1:27 in the morning. Then I turned my phone off and went to sleep. I slept better than I had in months. The first 2 days were quiet, in the way that the air gets quiet before a storm system moves in. A particular kind of stillness that only makes sense once you know what's coming. My phone stayed off at home and on silent at work. I told myself I'd check messages when I was ready. I wasn't ready until Wednesday evening. And by then I had 42 unread texts, 11 missed calls from my mother, 6 from my sister, 2 from my father, and 1 from my aunt, the same one who had posted the party video, that simply read "Call me when you can." I read everything. I did not respond to anything. My mother's messages ran the full range in the span of about 18 hours. The first few were short and confused. "What is this email, Claire? Call me." Then they shifted into something colder. She was dismissive at first. She said I was misrepresenting things, that I had offered to help Megan and no one had asked me to turn it into a transaction. Then she escalated. She told me that sending that email was a humiliation, that I had weaponized my sister's private struggles, that I had done this to make myself look good and Megan look bad, and that she was ashamed of how I was choosing to handle a family matter. My sister's messages were something else entirely. The first few were demanding, "Fix this, Claire. My insurance got canceled, you had no right," and then they swung hard into victim mode. She told me I had blindsided her, that I'd been holding this over her without telling her, that if I'd had a problem I should have said so instead of building a case file to use against her later. By Thursday, she was telling me she might have to leave her apartment, that her car might get repossessed, that I had created this crisis and she was the one suffering from it. I noticed she never once mentioned that she was 28 years old and had been relying on her older sister for 2 years of basic adult expenses. My father sent a single email on day 3, measured and careful in the way he is when he's uncomfortable but can't admit it. He told me he understood I was upset about the party. He said the timing had been unfortunate, his word, and that they should have thought about how it might look given my recent news. But he asked me not to let hurt feelings lead me to make a decision I'd regret. He said Megan depended on my help. He said I had always been the steady one, the capable one. He said the family needed me to be that right now. I wrote him back one line. I've been the steady one and the capable one for 30 years. I'm curious what Megan has been. I didn't hear back from him for 4 days after that. My aunt's message was the only one I answered. She had found out about the spreadsheet from my mother, and she said she'd had no idea. She said she'd been at that party thinking it was just a family gathering, that no one had told her the context, and that if she had known what I had been managing on my own for 2 years, she would have said something. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was more than okay, that I was actually the clearest I had felt in a long time. She believed me, I think, because she knew me well enough to know I don't say things I don't mean. Day 5 was when the wider family got involved. I received a message from my uncle in Phoenix, the one with the bad back who had apparently driven out for the party without difficulty, informing me that what I had done was cruel and calculated and that family didn't treat each other this way. I received a message from a cousin I had barely spoken to in 3 years reminding me that Megan was sensitive and that my actions had real consequences for a real person. I found that last part genuinely interesting. Given that my actions and my finances had been having real consequences for a real person, namely me, for 2 years, without anyone noticing or caring. I didn't respond to any of them. I had made the decision before I sent that email that I was not going to defend myself to an audience that had already picked a side. Silence was not weakness. Silence was me deciding that my peace was worth more than their approval. On day 7, my sister called my workplace. The receptionist flagged it because Megan had called twice in 10 minutes, and when told I was unavailable, she had said it was a family emergency. My manager came to my desk personally, looking genuinely worried. I felt the blood drain from my face, not because I was scared, but because I was furious in a way that felt very cold and very calm at once. I excused myself, went to the hallway, and called my sister back. "You called my office?" I said. "You won't answer my calls," she said. I didn't have a choice. You have plenty of choices, you just never had to make any of them. Claire. Her voice shifted. My landlord left a voicemail. He's going to start the process if I don't have rent covered by the end of the month. You have to fix this. I'm not asking you to keep paying forever. I just need more time. You've had 2 years, I said. That was the time. I can't believe you're doing this to me over a party. This has nothing to do with a party. The party was just the thing that finally made me stop lying to myself. There was a pause. Then she said, "You know everyone thinks you're jealous of me. That's what this is really about." I let that sit in the air for a moment. 30 years of being told I was jealous of her while I quietly made sure she kept her lights on. I almost laughed. "Megan," I said, "if anyone in this family is jealous of anyone, I think the spreadsheet pretty clearly shows who that might be." I went back to my desk and finished the day. My manager checked on me twice. I told her it was a family situation and that I had it handled. She nodded slowly and said to let her know if I needed anything. Small kindnesses from people who have no obligation to offer them hit differently when you've been running on empty for a long time. My mother appeared at my apartment building on day 9. I saw her through the video intercom. She was standing in the lobby with the expression she wears when she is convinced that sheer force of presence will resolve a situation. I buzzed her up because I had decided 2 days earlier that I was ready for this conversation. I needed it to happen in order to close something. She came in without looking around, sat down on my couch without being invited, and started talking before I could say anything. "This has to end," she said. "Your sister is a wreck. Your father can barely sleep. You've turned this family inside out over a birthday." "I didn't turn anything," I said. "I just stopped turning away from what was already there." "You sent a spreadsheet, Claire. You attached a spreadsheet to a family email." "Because what I was doing was real and specific, and I wanted everyone to know that." She looked at me then, and I could see the work she was doing to hold on to her version of things. "You offered to help Megan. Nobody forced you. I helped her because I loved her and because I didn't want to watch her fail, and because I thought if I was useful enough, eventually you would actually see me." I kept my voice even. "That was my mistake. Not the helping. The reason I did it." Something moved behind her eyes. She didn't speak for a moment. "The party," I said. "Mom, I called you the week before and told you I had just been promoted. You were on the phone with me for less than 5 minutes. Then you organized a catered party with a banner and string lights and a bakery cake for a degree that took twice as long as it should have. The same weekend. Megan needed the encouragement. I needed to be seen," I said. "I have needed that my entire life. And you have consistently given everything you had to her and told me I was strong enough to handle it." She stiffened. "You are strong." "I know I am. I didn't get that from you. I built it myself because I didn't have a choice." I paused. "I'm not angry at you, I'm just not pretending anymore. Not for Megan, not for you, not for anyone in that family group chat who has been texting me about loyalty for the past week." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I hadn't expected. She said, "If we'd known how much you were giving her, we would have stepped in." "Then you should have asked," I said. 30 years of me handling everything in silence should have made someone curious." She left without the apology I wasn't asking for, but she left differently than she had come in. Something had shifted in her posture. Something had given. It wasn't resolution. It was the first honest thing that had passed between us in years. My father called 2 days later, not to mediate this time. He asked if we could have dinner, just the two of us. He said he had been doing a lot of thinking. We met at a restaurant near his office that Thursday. He talked more than he usually does, and he said things he had never said before. That he and my mother had fallen into a pattern when Megan was young, during a particularly hard stretch when Megan was struggling in school and acting out, and that they had leaned on me without ever acknowledging the weight they were placing on me. That they had told themselves I was fine because I never said I wasn't. That they had let that story become the whole story. "You deserved a party," he said, looking at the table. "You have deserved one every year. I don't know how we let that get away from us." I didn't cry, but it was close. It was the most honest thing my father had ever said to me about any of this, and it arrived 30 years late, and it still mattered. "I don't need a party," I said. "I need you to stop treating my achievements like they're less significant because they came easily to me. They didn't come easily. I just never made you watch me struggle." He nodded. He didn't make excuses. That was the most important part. Megan did not lose her apartment. This is important because several people in my family had spent 2 weeks treating her potential eviction as a moral failure on my part, as if I were the one holding her housing hostage. In reality, what happened was exactly what I had hoped would happen. She was forced to figure it out herself. She picked up a second job at a coffee shop. She sold some furniture. She had an honest conversation with her landlord who gave her a 2-week grace period. She got the rent covered. According to my aunt, who had become my primary source of family news during the stretch when I wasn't speaking to my mother, Megan had cried for 4 days and then quietly, almost reluctantly, begun to act like an adult. My mother called me 3 weeks after her visit. She didn't apologize outright. That wasn't going to happen. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the way I might have wanted, but she asked how work was going. She asked about my apartment. She said she'd heard I had been putting money into my savings. She sounded like she was trying. I talked to her for 22 minutes. That was a record. I turned 31 in a restaurant with 8 friends from work, a colleague from my grad certificate program, and my aunt, who had driven in from 2 hours away specifically to be there. The table had a cake with my name on it that one of my coworkers had special ordered from the bakery near the office. There were candles. People sang. My friend gave a little speech about me that was embarrassing and generous and true. I thought about that Instagram caption while I was blowing out the candles. Some people actually earn their celebrations. I thought about what it had cost me to reach the point where I believed, finally and without caveats, that I was one of those people. About 6 weeks after all of this, I received a text from my sister. It was longer than her usual messages, and it didn't have the sharp edge her communication had carried for years whenever she wanted something from me. She told me she had been working both jobs for the past month. She told me she'd looked into a bookkeeping certification program that would take about 6 months. She said she had been going back through some of our old conversations and she realized she had taken more from me than she ever should have, and that she hadn't said thank you nearly enough, and that she understood if I wasn't ready to hear from her. She stopped short of calling it what it was. She didn't use the word sorry. But something in the texture of the message was different, and I had spent enough time in therapy by then to know the difference between someone performing change and someone actually reckoning with it. I waited 3 days before I replied. Not to punish her. I was past the point where that held any appeal, but because I wanted to be sure of what I actually wanted to say and not just say something because I felt obligated. I told her I appreciated the message. I told her I was glad she was working and glad she was looking into the certification. I told her I wasn't ready to go back to the way things had been, but that I was open to something different, something with clearer edges, more honesty, less of me quietly absorbing the things she didn't want to face. I told her that if she wanted to build something real between us, I was willing to try. I said it once, clearly, and I meant it. There is something nobody tells you about deciding to stop being the responsible one, the capable one, the one who handles it. They don't tell you that the grief is real, because you are grieving a version of your family you always wanted but never had, the one where your mother beams at you the way she beams at your sister, the one where your father doesn't accidentally skip your promotion dinner because he got busy, the one where your birthday isn't the day before someone else's celebration. You grieve the little girl who cleaned up the kitchen before her mother got home because she didn't want her mother to be stressed. You grieve the teenager who sat in the car alone outside her own honor society induction, waiting for a family that never showed up. You grieve all the ways you shrunk yourself to make room. But you also, if you're lucky, and if you do the work, eventually stop grieving and start building. I have a savings account now that would have made the version of me from 2 years ago cry with relief. I have friends who remember my birthday without a Facebook reminder. I have a therapist who asks hard questions and doesn't let me get away with the polite answers. I have a job title with the word senior in it. I have an apartment I like coming home to. My family is still my family. My mother is trying in the small, halting ways that people try when they don't have the vocabulary for what they're actually sorry for. My father calls on Sundays now, which he didn't do before. My sister sent me a photo last month of her certification coursework. A page of notes and a practice exam with a score circled in red pen, 84%. She added a single line below it, "Thought you'd want to see this." I wrote back, "I did." I don't know what the next few years look like with any of them. Some things that break don't fully repair, and I've stopped needing them to. What I know is that I spent 30 years waiting for my family to see me and decide I was worth celebrating. It took me a very long time to understand that I didn't need them to do it first. So I did it myself. And it turned out that was enough. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect? I'd really love to hear your story in the comments below. If this hit close to home, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about finding your footing when the people who were supposed to lift you up keep pushing you down. You deserve to take up space. You always have.